Have you guys ever went to see a local doctor, um, whether it's for a checkup or you have some scares, so you want to catch some advice, get your concerns heard, or even worse, right? You have extreme cases where you're functionally sick, functionally unwell, if not claimed terminally. And I'm not gonna really talk too much on being terminally ill. I'm not skilled or educated in that type of diagnosis whatsoever, so I won't stress that too much. But I know that when I've gone to the doctor, or when I hear people who are trying to do things, right? Lose weight is the number one thing. Lose weight, lower their cholesterol, lower their blood pressure, things like that, right? You don't hear the term fasting too much, right? I mean, you'll hear fasting when it's time for blood work, like, fast kind of before the blood work. So everything's kind of low, right? Blood sugar is low, things like that. But that's occasionally, or that's situational. That's not a daily thing that people are willing to do, or people are not even told to do, right? The whole premise around fasting, and it can sound extreme. I know, at least it did probably years back. But being in the 21st century, as we get close to 2030 and 2040, like, we're just getting just up in these years, right? Like, everything's exposed, everything's out in the open, everything is searchable, right? There's no really black hole for just like one thing. Like, everything's exposed with the internet and social media, right? So fasting doesn't probably, it doesn't sound as mystical as it once was, or if it ever was, is what I'm trying to say. But with fasting, right? I've been looking into fasting on and off for years, and I'm talking about intermittent fasting, not something that's prolonged. 24, 48 plus, 24, 48, 72 plus hours, right? If you're not looking at the extreme case or the extreme duration of fasting, right? If you're talking about a period of anywhere from 12 to 18 hours, right? Maybe 16 hours on average, right? At least every other day, right? Not only can you maintain decent health with your liver, with your gut, digestion, increasing or maintaining your at least your metabolism, right? Lowering your blood sugar, lowering your glucose, lowering your cholesterol, your blood pressure, right? Losing weight or maintaining weight, depending on the fast and obviously your age and metabolism levels, right? Like, it could also prevent or lessen, a lot of those silent killers, like diabetes, high blood pressure / hypertension, strokes, heart diseases, cardiac arrests, heart attacks, heart palpitations, right? Especially on the extreme side, right? It could limit those things. It can limit those things, or put them to a null, again, based on your activity and overall diet, right? Outside or around intermittent fasting. When I was younger, right, it was I was used to only eating once to twice a day. Most of the times, really once a day for a main meal, because I was just so active. And so I had no idea that in my teens, right, that I was really doing what's called intermittent fasting. Like, I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know that was a medical term, or um, a health prognosis. Like I didn't know that. I didn't eat for two reasons. I was either busy. I mean, outside of not being hungry, but I was either busy or broke. So like, eating was limited. Eating was minimal, right? And then I was super active, right? I wasn't just busy like with work or school. I was super active. I was always burning calories, right? I would work out, and my water weight would deplete 5 to 10 pounds after hours of activity, and then I'll get most of that back before the end of the night. So I always maintained weight or stayed lean, obviously as a teen, which a lot of people, to most people, do. And then I got a little bit older, and I'm like, okay, what is this science? And I'm like, wow, because it popped up on my feed again, YouTube. Yeah, I'm not necessarily looking for things. With social media, sometimes stuff is just put in your face. And sometimes it's put in your face because you're thinking about it in a way. Because I'm thinking about losing weight, toning up again years later. And it's like intermittent fasting. So I was already doing that ignorantly or unknowingly because of those two things I talked about. But then I started realizing the health benefits. And it's like people with cancers, certain cancers, again, not so much terminally ill. I'm not going to go into that route. But, things where it's detrimental to your health, right? Like you're at a situational level in your health scare that it can be or it is detrimental. And you start weaning yourself off of stuff, right? Outside of limiting to, being straight edge with smoking and alcohol, right? You sleep, you got all those other variables, right? I would say more so those secondary variables, but ultimately the less you put in your body, like the general science that I'm really starting to put together that entails all the secrets of life is just the less you do, the more, right? The less you put, and this is the same thing with diet. The less you put in your body, the more. It doesn't even matter if all day you eat vegetables, because all day, right, you have your digestion working, right? Plus you can't really over-absorb, the same amount of vitamins, proteins, right, things of that nature, because your body only needs so much. I literally stopped drinking protein shakes for that reason. Not only was it taking me to the bathroom because I'm just consuming so much cow milk, right, and whey/manufactured protein, right? You don't need that much protein. Your body's a mechanism. It creates protein, man, right? You don't need all that. People, they get crazy with steaks, and they're like, chicken and turkey, like they just meat. So it doesn't really matter what you consume necessarily. I think everything has a balance, but the real secret code is just the, less you put in body, you more. Same with supplements. If you eat a decent amount of vitamins, or of fruits, you're getting minerals and vitamins from your fruit, right? Nice portion of meat, right? You have some healthy grains, right? You maybe eat some oats, you know what I'm saying? Like stuff like that. Like from your diet, you're getting most of your nutrients anyway already. There's juices and obviously there's, fruits, like there's certain things that, have enzymes in it to break down, the bad stuff in your body, right? There's turmeric and ginger, things like that, you could drink too, like in teas and stuff like that. So it's very, you could take a very natural, right, approach. Nothing insane, nothing crazy, nothing living off the land type of thing. Although you could, because it can be cheaper if you have the time to manufacture your own garden, of course. But simply getting to a period at the day where you consume and then you stop consuming. You let that gremlin effect take place, right? You hydrate after your consumption, after your major consumption throughout that 4 to 8 hour period where you eat, right? If you're getting 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep, right, that's already half the time of your fasting. And now you make sense. And now it makes sense. You break your fast. You don't necessarily break your fast as soon as you wake up. I mean, because the more you go without eating, right? The more you're regenerating, those cells in your body, man. The more you're getting into autophagy, right? Secret stuff, like nobody have to drink baby blood. Like we're not doing any sacrifices or nothing, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. So when you look at all these extreme cases of people trying to be, look, or act younger, it's less is more. That's what it's less is more. Eat what you need to eat. You eat what you need to eat, right? You be productive. You be active, right? You get enough sleep. You work or have a hobby if you're retired, right? Because cravings happen, especially when you're sitting around the house or always around food. So the mind can really be that placebo, right? It can really play into that placebo effect where you're thinking you need something and you don't, And so I want to enlighten people about that. And I want to encourage people that less is really more, even when you're putting things in your body. It's just, it's profound when you realize that, that certain places, they don't talk about this in schools, with health and PE. Obviously, you're younger, right? So most kids don't have to fast, but everything's about prevention. We don't got to wait till something happens to you. You don't got to wait till you have hypertension or wait till you have a stroke. Underlying cases, genetics play a role. It's always going to play a role. That's the unfortunates or fortunates of life. If you have, the better genetics, the better blood history. But things are preventable. And for a lot of people, we may just have to do more, right, to prevent, right? But intermittent fasting, man, it's just that secret medicine that costs nothing. It don't cost nothing. You don't need insurance for intermittent fasting. Try it out, man. Go 12, 16, 18 hours without eating. Do that every other day. Check back at your health in 5 or 10 years, man. Look at where you're at compared to your peers. Fasting can keep you alive and healthy and young.